Autofocus System Basics. There are two ways to start autofocus with the EOS 6D. Normally, you press the shutter button halfway down, or you can press the AF on button with your right thumb. Then, capture the picture by pressing the shutter button all the way down. The EOS 6D has several autofocus operation settings suitable to different shooting conditions. One-shot AF for still subjects, AI Servo AF for moving subjects, and AI Focus AF for subjects that are unpredictable. To select the focus setting, make sure the lens focus mode switch is set to AF. Next, the exposure mode dial must be in a creative zone mode, which allows you to choose AF settings. Finally, press the AF button above the top LCD panel. Use the top main dial or quick control dial to select the AF mode. One-shot AF is best suited for still subjects. Press the shutter button or the AF on button to activate automatic focusing. When focusing is complete, the AF points that achieved focus will flash in red. A round green focus confirmation light in the viewfinder will appear continuously along with a subtle beep sound. Once focus has been achieved in one-shot AF, you can lock it in by continuing to press the shutter button halfway down or by holding in the AF on button. Now, you can recompose the shot and take the picture at the locked distance setting. AI Servo AF allows the camera to continuously focus on moving subjects. As long as the shutter button or the rear AF on button is pressed, the focus will continually follow the subject. If you've set the camera for automatic AF point selection, start tracking the subject with the center focusing point. If the subject then moves off-center, any of the outer AF points can continue to track its movement. On the other hand, if you've manually selected an individual focus point, the camera will track the subject only as long as that box in the viewfinder stays upon your subject. AI Focus AF mode lets the camera automatically choose one-shot AF or AI Servo AF based on its analysis of subject movement. Press the shutter button halfway or press the AF on button to start autofocus. Keep the button pressed to let AI Focus AF lock focus on a non-moving subject or be ready to start focus tracking if it begins to move. AI Focus is always set when the camera is in the full auto green zone mode as well as the creative auto mode. It can also be useful in other shooting modes when photographing various moving and stationary subjects. The EOS 6D has 11 focus points, which you can see as small black boxes in its viewfinder. Focus point selection can be set to automatic, where the camera automatically selects one of the 11 AF points. Or you can choose manual, where you select any one AF point. You cannot select AF points manually if the camera is set to the Special Scene, Creative Auto, or Scene Intelligent Auto modes. The camera is set for automatic focus point selection when all 11 AF points are highlighted in the viewfinder or a broad rectangle along with the letters AF is displayed on the top LCD screen. To choose automatic AF point selection, press the AF point selection button. Use the top main dial, quick control dial, or the multi-controller to move the active AF point until all of them light up in red. When they do, stop and lightly tap the shutter button to lock in your choice. When automatic focus point selection is combined with one-shot AF, the camera will tend to focus on the nearest subject with readable contrast. When automatic focus point selection is combined with AI Servo AF, the camera will start tracking the moving subject with the center AF point and then continue tracking it with the other AF points if it moves away from the center. Keep in mind that when all the AF points are active along with AI Servo AF, the points do not light up in red in your viewfinder. Manually select AF points by pressing the AF point selection button and select the desired focusing point using the top main dial, quick control dial, or the multi-controller. When the point you want to use appears in red, stop and tap the shutter button lightly to lock it in. Now, AF will occur at the single AF point you've selected in one-shot AF as well as in AI Servo AF. Again, in AI Servo AF, the point will not continually light up in the viewfinder during focusing. With multiple autofocus options, the EOS 6D provides the tools necessary to achieve accurate focus in a range of different shooting conditions.